From the Asian Community Development Council, this is Family in Focus, Mondays at 12 noon on PHLV Radio.
Welcome to Family in Focus on this Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. The show, of course, brought to you by the Asian Community Development Council here on PHLV Radio. We're glad to have you with us today. Today, we're going to talk about writing, and we actually have a published author with us in the studio today, and we are actually in the studio. It's been a while since we're here at the studio at PHLV Radio, but I have a great guest with me here today. Her name is Judy Choi. She's a published writer, and you actually work at Sappos as well, but we're here to talk about your book. Actually, you have two books, one that has been published and another one that's coming out, and also kind of the backstory behind this, because one of the things we want to talk about here is kind of the backstory behind it, right, Judy, and kind of what you've gone through, and I think it's really relevant to what we're talking about here, which is bullying, Asian American, the discrimination, violence that we've talked about that's in the news over the past year, and just, your own story and how you as a writer and your work has kind of been a healing space for you and also your niece as well. So we're going to talk about her. So once again, Judy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Patranya, and thank you to ACDC as well as PHLV for letting me be here. I guess I can just maybe start out as why I started writing.
Yeah, and first we want to tell people that the book that came out in 2018 is called The Cloud That Fell from the Sky, and you brought a copy with you, and don't block your face there. Okay. Yeah, so The Cloud That Fell from the Sky, which is a big book, and you've showed this to me before, and people can find this, right? It's been published, and it's out there, but basically it's a poetry book, right, that came out, and you have another book that's coming out. We'll talk about it in just a little bit, but talk to us a little bit about The Cloud That Fell from the Sky and the inspiration, because you wrote this poetry book with your niece, correct?
I did. What happened was, so Phoenix is my niece, and I found her journal when she was 15, and I started just reading some of it, and I just realized that she was writing poetry to get through a very difficult experience, because both her parents, they're going through pretty bad drug addiction. And I think the first thing that I noticed is that she was 15 and she started writing actually probably about 13 years old. Right. And it was her age, and then I also started noticing the dates of when she was writing the poems. They were like Christmas. Sorry, I'm going to get teary-eyed here.
It's still very emotional for you, this whole experience of you finding out. Did you know that she had been writing and feeling all these feelings? And
I knew she wrote well, but I didn't know that she was writing poetry. And when I was reading it, it was like, her writing was very mature, it was very sophisticated, and it was very eloquent, and at the same time, it was very tragic, and you could just feel, the sadness coming from what she was writing. And of course, it's very, it's very close to me, because, this is my sister that we're talking about, and it's been an ongoing it's just been an ongoing situation for us for quite some time.
Yeah. So your niece was a teenager at the time. She was 13?
She was 13 when she started writing, but when I found the poems, she was 15.
Okay.
And really, one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because of what she's gone through. She doesn't have good grades, and she's a very poor test taker. And I was like, maybe this is like a good way to kind of bolster her application for college. And that's kind of like I initially wanted to do this, because I just knew that, when you kind of look on paper, it looks like, it's just like a student probably didn't push herself as hard as she could have, but she went through so much during that time that it's, it would be hard for anybody to just live a normal life.
So that was an outlet for her to write because of what she was going through with her family and issues like that. But did you have your writing in the book as well?
I do.
Yeah.
So my writing is really, I would say that my writing is more influenced by, I guess like growing up when I was a kid at school, I was also bullied, and I was very isolated, and so I used to actually go to the library, and I didn't want anyone to know that I was by myself, so I would just go there and I started reading, and books just became some sort of a refuge. And I think with the Chinese culture, we're not allowed to really express ourselves, especially if you have like bad feelings or you went through like a negative experience. So for me, writing has always been like an outlet of truth, where I can write my true feelings. And even now, it's still very hard for me to verbally express myself.
So you were bullied as a child, but you told me earlier that you were also bullied as an adult in your workplace as well. And you continued to write throughout these ever since you were a kid, or did you start writing as you got older?
I would say that I started, it was just more of, I used to just have a journal and I was writing in there, and it just happened to be poetry. And I was going through, at some point I was going through like a very difficult situation, and I don't know, it was really weird. I would just, the words would just come into my head, and I started writing, and then that became the poetry that's in the cloud that fell from the sky.
And was that the title have anything to do? What was kind of the story behind the title?
Well, there's a lot of clouds and there's a lot of skies in my poetry. To me, the sky represents it's like that sense of freedom. And of course, you have like the cloud that's there, and it's supposed to be floating. But I think for me, it was just like all these heaviness of these emotions that I've been holding on to, that it caused the cloud, I guess, to fall.
Yeah. And, and talk to me about that process, because I know a lot of people write in their journals, things like that as they're, going through different emotions, different feelings. How does it feel when you're writing? Does that kind of just feel like you're kind of expressing things that you couldn't otherwise?
It's definitely, being able to express yourself or just express emotions that you might be uncomfortable with talking about.
Right.
So a lot of times I feel like there's conversations that I should probably be having with a person, but I don't end up doing that. So I end up just putting it on a piece of paper, and then I don't know, sometimes the person might read it or they might not.
Yeah. And you say part of being Asian American too, you feel like in the culture is that you're not really kind of encouraged to like seek out therapy or share your problems and things like that, right? Growing up.
I think for me, I think there's just because I'm second generation, and for my parents, for them, their definition of happiness is just having a house and, just being able to put food on the table. They came from like very tough times. And, I think that they don't, when I would tell them that, I'm not happy, they don't understand it, because they look at, oh, you have a house and you have food, like, why are you unhappy? So I don't think they understand that, like for me, that, I'm looking for something else kind of beyond that materialistic accomplishments.
Yeah. So, when you were thinking of getting this book out, and getting your nieces writing out there too, there was some pushback from your family, right? And getting this book published.
There was. I remember I was actually really, I was so proud when the book was about to come out, and we actually got it successfully funded on Kickstarter. And I remember calling my dad and thinking that he was going to be really happy for me. And it was actually the opposite. I actually had 2 months where I had family members calling me at 6 a.m. in the morning, telling me to stop writing and to stop, to stop this book, because it was going to ruin my life and it was going to ruin my niece's life.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I think that, they understood like what the inspiration was behind the book, and I think that there's like that sense of shame of, dealing with a family member who has drug addiction in the family. And it's something that, even to this day, that we don't really talk about. I think for them, they just kind of look at it as, I don't see it, so it's not happening. And the problem with that is that that actually kind of enables the behavior, and it persists. And so there's no help for the people who actually really need the help the most.
Yeah. And what was your niece's reaction, when you proposed the idea of this book? Did she want to do this as much as you did? Get her writings out there?
I think she was actually, I remember when we were filming, she just said she was surprised that anyone thought her writing was valuable. And so it was really, really touching, I think, for me and for her, for someone to say, like, you have a voice, you have something to say, and it's really important, and what you're saying is actually going to be helping other people too, to be able to express themselves. And I remember after the book came out, and I still have people coming up to me, and I would have never known, like at work or and they tell me that they're dealing with a similar issue too, and I would have never known,
Right.
And so it created like a space for dialogue and sharing, and just letting others know that we're not alone, and we're all struggling together through this, and also trying to find ways to help each other too through these difficult times.
And I know I didn't ask you to do this before, but is there a do you mind reading part of the book, or just a passage?
Oh, sure.
And then just kind of share with our viewers, maybe a part that's special to you?
Sure, let me find it.
I'm sure they're all, but maybe there's one that you wanted to share in particular.
Yeah, there is one, because it's actually, I don't know, for you, like if in your family, but for my family, I always felt that with Chinese parents, it always felt like that their love was always, and their acceptance was always conditional.
Like you have to have good grades, or you have to be a good kid, or something like that.
If you have good grades, you're reading, you're good. And then if you curl your hair, put on makeup, or paint your nails, then you're a bad person. And it just felt like very conditional to me. So this is a poem I wrote, and it's called Hidden. And there's actually the photo that goes with it. So one thing about this poetry book is that each poem is interpreted with a floral abstract. So here's the poem. Into love I fall away, hide it for another day, hold it in a tight closed fist, behind a door so it will be missed, hang it from a dangling string, then cut it pencil paper thin, onto the floor, let it fall, close it up behind a wall. Let it drop, will it break? Shatter like a broken plate. Use a broom, sweep it up, hide it underneath a rug. Another time to pick it up, will it be gone? Will it stay? Does love ever fall away?
So the name, it's Hidden.
It's called Hidden.
Tell me just kind of the meaning behind that. What was kind of inspiration?
The inspiration is that, I think that there's always this sense of, with my family, and especially with my father, that his love is just like, sometimes like if you don't do what he wants, it's like easily like taken away. And it's really hard because, I think that you want to, you want your parents to accept you for who you are. And it's really hard because if I don't follow the path that, if I don't follow the path he wants me to take, it's like I'm a disappointment to him.
And this as an adult, you're this emotional. So I feel like this is probably something that's lifelong for a lot of people, right? Not just you, but for people, like it's lifelong to feel like we need to do certain things to be accepted or to be recognized as valid.
Well, it's definitely still emotional because I'm still dealing with, like with the second book, like I'm like afraid to even tell my dad about it because of
and the
his
second
reaction.
book, and you mentioned that it's called The Ukelberry Tree, which is coming out in this fall. You're hoping that it'll come out this fall. Talk to us a little bit about that because that's more personal to you.
That was very personal. So I, like I mentioned, I've been bullied as a kid, and I was also bullied as an adult, and I think there were just like a lot of, it's like very complex, I think, when you're going through like being bullied, because at least for me, like in, growing up in the Chinese culture, you're never supposed to question the authority. And so I was just kind of in this situation where I was being bullied at work, and the person happened to oversee me. And it's hard because with bullies, that even though this person was mean to me, they're actually nice to other people. So when you try to get support, I think that they don't even see that, what's happening. And, for the people that actually, I think one of the worst things about being bullied is that the people who actually observe it and they don't stand up for you, and that includes myself. I think that it took me so long to, stand up for myself, and at the same and I was basically at a breaking point, and I was just like sitting on a couch, and I didn't really have an outlet, and all of a sudden this story came to me. And it's about an Asian girl, and she's trying to fit into the world. And at one point, there's a scene in the book where she actually tries to paint herself so that way she can fit in, and the paint just like washes away. And so she's not able to fit in, and she ends up leaving the world, and her new world is a piece of paper, and she's granted one wish, and her only wish is to find a friend. And so she and her new friend, they end up going on an adventure to find this magical tree that has fruits, which is the ukelberry tree, and it has these fruits that grant your wishes. And I wanted to write a book that was more accessible, but also was like teaching these like lessons that I've learned, which is that really to just kind of stand up for who you are, and to accept yourself also. So there's a lot of symbolism in the book. There's one image that I sent over that you'll hopefully share, and it's the character, and she's actually has all these like paper planes being thrown at her. And to me, those paper planes, they symbolized all the hurtful things that people did to me when I was a kid for being Chinese, and also as an adult, just kind of like the verbal attacks. And what I thought was interesting about having the paper plane is that it's a blank page, and to me that blank page also represented my silence, because I never stood up for myself. And also that blank page means it's an opportunity for me to write and share my story. So I'm able to finally, I guess, stand up for myself, but in a different way.
That's great. I mean, it's great that you are getting to this point where you found a way to not just share your story in a positive way, hoping to help other people, but also be able to keep on this healing process through writing as well. And I have to ask, just talking about what we mentioned in the beginning about this past year, a lot of Asian American Pacific Islanders have been targets of discrimination, bullying, starting with bullying, discrimination, leading up to violence. How, just watching this, and I would imagine this impacted you in a big way.
It definitely has impacted me. I think that's why I've actually, after I heard Vita speak from ACDC, that it was great, because all of a sudden we have like a group of Asian supporters actually at Zappos, and we've kind of created a group where we can support each other and express. And I think the one thing about what's happening with the violence against Asians is really, I feel like that it's actually always happened. It's just like finally being talked about.
Right.
And I think that of course it is much more severe, but I think that, the reason I wrote this book is because I also want to talk about, like the racism, because that's what I experienced, and that's why I was excluded, because I was Chinese. And, when you're a kid, you don't really understand it, but, it was hard because I think that just going through all that, like having the kids just kind of say those mean things, you actually question, yourself being Chinese, and you get to a point where you don't want to be Chinese, and you know, you should be proud of, you know, who you are. And so yeah, it took a long time for me to be comfortable with being Chinese, and that's why I think that it was really important for the character in the book to be an Asian girl.
Yeah, and I think that's the key part too, right? I mean, when you write these books and show your face as the author, your nieces, and just to normalize that for people reading, is like someone that looks like me is going through similar things.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that what I learned is after I was talking to a couple of people, and I didn't realize that workplace bullying is so prevalent. And so that to me means that it's also very silent, you know, and, you know, with, you know, talking about what's happening, you know, with recent events with the coronavirus, you know, I haven't experienced racism for a while, but the past couple years, you know, I have people just like verbally attack me just out of the blue. And again, like, you don't know what to do. It's just like you stay silent. And I think this is really just really like an outlet to say that, you know, we need to stand up against not only the violence towards Asians, but also just to know that we're here to support each other, because I think that we are, you know, I think that we're just raised to be quieter.
Yeah, but you know what? You're speaking out, right, in your own way, in your own words, which I think is really wonderful. So, I mean, what do you want to say? I mean, if someone's listening, you know, no matter what age, you know, listening to this and hearing your story, what can they take away from what you've learned through this whole process and getting to where you are right now? What kind of advice would you want to give to someone who maybe are going through or have gone through similar situations?
You know, I would say that, you know, it's about standing up for who you are and what you believe in, and to not let, you know, whether it's like cultural or societal conventions or other people like put you down. You know, I think that the most important thing is to like be your own friend. And, you know, once you learn to stand up for yourself, you actually learn to stand up for other people. And I think that's the most important thing, is that to bring awareness to stopping bullying, and really just any type of, I guess, like any type of negativity based off of someone's race or just what their lifestyle choices happen to be.
Yeah. So again, your books, so the one that's already out there, The Cloud That Fell from the Sky. Tell people if they want to look for this book, and where can they find it, where they can find more information.
Yeah, you can look. So it's on tigrefou.com, tigrefou.com. We're also in Kinokuniya in the Los Angeles area, as well as Tattered Cover in Denver.
And they can get this online as well,
and they
right?
get this online as well too.
Yeah, and you basically, I think, you open your own publishing business, right? To get this book out there.
I did. I remember when I reached out to a couple people in the beginning, because I was trying to get help with the publishing of it, and you just got a lot of. It was really difficult. Like the minute I mentioned poetry, I think people lost interest, and it was so important for me to get this book out that I just decided that I'm going to start this small press and get this book out there.
Yeah. How are you feeling right now? Just with this book out there, your next one coming out. I mean, do you feel like things are finally the way that you want to be?
I feel I feel excited. Of course, I feel nervous at the same time, because you never know when you put a book out there like how it's going to be received, and especially with writing, I think it's so personal that you are putting yourself out there. You're very vulnerable because when you're writing, it's just a reflection of who you are.
Yeah.
I also feel very calm about it also, because I feel that I'm very happy with what the book has become, and in that sense, it's just like if it just reaches like one person, that's what the point of that book is. Even if it makes a difference in one person's life.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you, Judy, for sharing your story. I know it's very personal, for sharing with us and for getting the book out there. Again, the book is called The Cloud That Fell from the Sky. Came out back in 2018. So it's a poetry book, beautiful pictures too, by the way. And then she has another book coming out this fall called The Ukelberry Tree. So watch out for that this fall. So Judy, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Patranya.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching the show, this episode of Family in Focus. We'll be back again next Monday with more topics, more people. And thank you so much for following us on social media, both PHLV Radio and also at ACDC. We'll see you again next week.